Gone Home holds a really special place in my heart. I was 14 when it first released, and after hearing the praise from critics, I had to try it out for myself. I actually pirated the game at this time because I had no income, and my parents weren't really big fans of buying a game for me if I couldn't hold it in my hands. I ended up loving the game so much though that a year or two later I bought the game for full price on Steam, and for this review I'm actually playing the Nintendo Switch version, so I bought the game twice now and hopefully the devs can forgive me. I always think you should support the developers if the option is there for you. Gone Home was released in 2013 to a lot of praise from the industry, but it also sparked a lot of debate around games of this nature. Walking simulators, if you will. This term held a negative connotation for a long time, but now it seems to be used as more of a way to describe these types of games in the genre, linear with a focus on narrative and exploration. There's absolutely nothing wrong with linearity or a narrative focus, but these games do sit in their own niche and aren't everyone's cup of tea. I, on the other hand, fell in love with this game upon its release. Which is kind of weird now that I remember all I used to play in 2013 was Call of Duty and other shooting man games. The indie studio Fulbright, who created Gone Home, were really doing something experimental at a time when even games like Halo were caving in and making their slower games more fast-paced and Call of Duty-like. I think this is a prime example of the idea that indie developers are what breeds innovation and new ideas in this industry, but that's a topic for another video. Gone Home takes place in 1995. You play as Katie Greenbrier, a 21-year-old who has just returned home from a year of traveling overseas. Since you've been gone, your family has moved into a new house. Upon your arrival, you find a note on the front door from your younger sister, Sam, urging you not to go digging around to find out where she is. So naturally, you start digging around to find out where she is. There is no combat, there aren't really any puzzles, and you can't die in this game. You kind of just explore and experience the story, which is in part told to you in the form of audio diaries from Sam, along with environmental clues and notes to be found from various characters and places throughout the house. Gone Home's biggest flex is probably its masterful display of immersion and ambiance. The first time I ever played this game, I was somewhat afraid to move forward in the dark abandoned house. I wasn't sure if something was going to be standing behind me at the other end of the hallway if I were to turn around and look. There are several instances in the game where picking up or even facing your camera towards an item will trigger an audio clip or some kind of event. Whether it's rain on a window that at first sounds like a door creaking open or a nearby light bulb blowing. Every now and then you'll stop and ask yourself if you're actually the only person in the house. The sound design of this game really is phenomenal, from the game's main menu to the incredible voice acting, not to mention the game's soundtrack or the few songs you can listen to on various cassette tapes throughout the game. These songs on cassette are actually from real punk bands in the 90s and do a great job at driving home the aesthetic of the era the game takes place in. As someone who really enjoys the girl punk genre, I think all of these cassette tapes feature some great music. I've especially become pretty fond of Bratmobile after playing through the game again for this video. I was originally going to go through all of the story points of the game, but decided not to spoil everything and just cover the basics. If you haven't played Gone Home before, I strongly recommend you stop the video and give it a chance. I love the story of this game so much and really wish that I could experience it again for the first time. The first time I did play it, I had no idea what awaited me through the front doors of the house. I made up all of these scenarios in my head. Did everyone die? Did they ditch town? I never would have imagined for it to be what it was. Now, the explanation behind the family's whereabouts isn't something as grandiose as I was expecting, but that isn't a bad thing at all. As you uncover more of Sam's journals, you're given insight into her perspective and emotions on the events in the last year, moving to a new home, a new school, and meeting new people. You learn that the house your family has moved into is referred to as the Psycho House by Sam's classmates. For me, this really amped up all of the unsettling feelings I had while exploring. Sam meets an upperclassman girl named Lonnie who is interested in seeing the fabled Psycho House. Lonnie is your typical 90s punk girl stereotype. She's very anti-authority and very feminist, but she does have a lot more layers that contradict the stereotype. She's in the ROTC at her school and plans to join the military after graduation. Sam even addresses this at one point and mentions how strange it is for Lonnie to be so against obeying authority and then to be so adamant about the ROTC and joining the military. But the game does explain this contradiction later. As you're given more audio journals, you see Sam and Lonnie's relationship grow and blossom into something much less platonic. They become inseparable, and their relationship is very wholesome and heartwarming while having the looming worry about what will happen when Lonnie ships out to basic. Sam goes through a coming-of-age story and is discovering who she is. You can see her begin to change pretty quickly with Lonnie's influence. She begins to lie to her parents about her whereabouts and gets into a little trouble at school too. While Sam is never in any apparent danger, her parents view this as a rebellious phase and eventually discover what was going on between her and Lonnie. They end up grounding her, telling her that she isn't old enough to know what she wants. This is really the first time that the parents make an appearance in Sam's storyline, or at least the first time they have any real impact on anything. The mother and father have their own separate stories that you piece together throughout the house. The mother works as a nature conservationist, and the father is a writer with a few published books. Their stories mostly told through notes and letters throughout the house, and it was only in this most recent playthrough when I finally put the pieces of both of them together. It's certainly a lot more interesting than I remembered. There's also the story of the house's previous owner, Oscar, which is connected to Sam and Katie's father in a way. There are a lot of different theories on what was going on with Oscar, some a lot more dark than others, but the game never tells you outright. It really just leaves you clues and lets you decide what happened. When the mother and father's separate stories converge, they both end up leaving town for a reason I won't spoil, conveniently at the same time as Lonnie's last days with Sam before shipping to basic training. This is also around the time that the player character returns home from overseas. I'm not going to spoil the ending here, but I really urge you to go experience the game on your own, whether you watch a playthrough online or you play it yourself. Gone Home is one of my favorite games of all time. The ambiance of the house is almost mesmerizing at times, and it really makes you feel like you're there. After this playthrough, I was a little shocked standing up from my desk as I had to adjust to another reality. I tried to find things I really dislike about the game, and I think the only thing I can come up with is that maybe some of the models haven't aged the best and look a little disproportionate compared to others, but I'm really just nitpicking here. The Switch version is definitely a graphical downgrade from the PC version too, but that's what you get when you have the added benefit of portability. Fulbright took a great risk with this game, and it was a brave direction to go in at the time of its release, not just with the story, but also its type of gameplay, especially coming from a brand new studio. I believe it absolutely deserves all of the praise and awards it received back then. Every 2 or 3 years, I'll come back and play through Gone Home again. It's a short and sweet game that never fails to be enjoyable. Fulbright has become one of my most kept up with studios, and I'm really excited to see what kind of story their next game, Open Roads, has to tell. If you're still here, I just want to take the time to say thank you so much for watching this video to the end. I've always wanted to make these kinds of analysis videos, and I finally decided to just go ahead and do it. I started with a really short game like Gone Home, but I already have my next video in the works, and it's definitely on a much bigger scale. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell. You can also keep up with what I'm doing on any of my social links in the description below. Thank you all again.
Sam. Sam.